Tag TV and Tag Radio. Be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. You know, you could describe it as if a group of cable TV producers were sitting around a room brainstorming a new idea for a reality program. You know, American Idol, meets up with Shark Tank, and in 6 hours of tension-packed, information-filled, mind-blowing entrepreneurial passion, gives birth to a startup technology company, then hands them $50,000 in cash, and like a baby shower for a newborn business in entrepreneurial dreamland, gives the winner a suite of services packages worth a huge part of another $400,000. No gift wrap and hold the tea cakes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's back, and it's for real. Bigger, better, and more exciting than ever in its 5-year history. It's the 2011 GRA Tag Business Launch Competition. It began this year with 89 starry-eyed dreamers and ends up with 4 doers that are sure to make event attendees break out in debate. As an all-star panel of venture capitalists and investors from around the country ultimately decide, all in one day, in 6 hours of show-me-the-money presentations and straight to the finish, when one of the finalists leaves, winning. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, May 10th, 2011, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. This is the annual Final Four championship that all visionaries, entrepreneurs, and tech innovators await with anxious anticipation. As today we Tech Talk Are You Ready with the 4 outstanding companies vying in the 2011 GRA Tag Business Launch Competition. Pindrop Security, Visit Tech, Audit My Books, and first up to the big launch warm-up round, Soket, as Tino speaks with company founder and president Marcel Crudele. Like color commentary before the Derby, like the expectation building to the Triple Crown, basketball's Final Four, or the Super Bowl, you will not want to miss this May 24th event. In this special Tech Talk series, Tino will get to the facts and cite the competitive advantages. You can start placing your your opinions, then join us on May 24th to see the results with your very own eyes. Tech Talk GRA Tag Business Launch Special with the finalist series as Tino speaks with Soket founder and president Marcel Crudele.
Marcel, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk.
Oh, it's good to see you here.
It's so congratulations. You're a business launch finalist 2011. We started with over 80 companies. I think it was 84 was the final number. And now it's down to the final 4. So you're going to be in front of some top judges from all over the country in a couple of weeks. And we wanted to have our listening audience be able to hear a little bit about the company. So now you're going to sit in front of these top-notch judges from around the country. Marcel, what are you going to tell them about the company? What's the soundbite?
Well, Soket is basically a command center that helps local organizations manage their online presence, from everything from social networks to their own website. So basically these local organizations like restaurants, bars, clubs, and professional groups struggle with how to manage all that web stuff.
Yeah.
And we basically help make it easier.
Well, that's great, and you obviously impressed our semifinal judges, so you made it into the finals, and that's terrific. Let's take a step back. Tell me a little bit about your professional background. How did you become an entrepreneur?
Well, I've got a BS in physics from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and a master's in ME from Georgia Tech. I then went on to be the manager of information technology at a manufacturing company out in Dallas, doing lots of ERP, EDI type stuff. But I tried to get back to Atlanta as quickly as possible and did that right at the end of the dot-com not a good time to go work for a company that I worked for, which was a startup telecom company. So that didn't last too long.
Right.
I called my old company back in Dallas to check my reference, and they asked me if I wanted to move back to Dallas, and I said I'd prefer to stay in Atlanta, and they asked me if I wanted to do some consulting. So that led to my first company, which I ran for about 7 years, and a business and technology consulting firm called InterEcho, and started getting pretty passionate about it. I've been working on this idea in the back of my head for a while, and that idea was Soket, and decided I was done with consulting, sold the consulting company, and started up Soket.
We have a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this program, and a lot of them are working in companies, and they just would like to make that break out, I think, from being an employee to starting their own business. So maybe you can give them a little bit of advice to how you made that transition and what were the biggest challenges.
Yeah, that was a big challenge for me. My entire background had been geared as more of the technician, the person that actually does very focused work as part of an overall company. And it was actually a big mental hurdle to transition into a business owner mindset where you're not as focused on the technical aspect of whatever it is you're doing, but you're having to take into account the business ideals. And that was surprisingly difficult to switch my head around to thinking in a completely different way. And there are a couple of books out there that just kind of struck the mark for me. One of them was The E-Myth, which is the entrepreneur myth, and it talks about how a lot of people that start companies started from the technician role, and they think, well, my boss is an idiot and I can do this better than he can. And then when they start a company, they realize there's a whole lot more to it than just the actual implementation work. Another one was actually called the cash flow quadrant, which talks about the different mindsets of people in business. But it's a big challenge to make that mental leap.
How about, so you did some reading, how about mentors? How have you found Atlanta to be in terms of a support system for someone starting a business?
It was actually pretty surprising because for a long time I wasn't able to find anyone as a mentor in Atlanta, and then I realized that I just didn't know how to look. So I actually spent a week and did a concerted effort trying to find people, and I ended up connecting with ATDC and TAG, and began to realize, and over the past 3 years, it's been phenomenal the amount of activity, the support activity that's going on for entrepreneurs in Atlanta. I do have friends in other markets who are entrepreneurs, and as far as support and the amount of people that are focused on trying to get information out there and trying to support entrepreneurs, I'd definitely say it's among the top markets that I've seen and I've heard of from my friends.
That's great. We've heard that as well, and we're glad we're playing a role. You have raised some money, of course, not over the cap that the business launch has, but you've raised some angel funding. How'd you do that? That's not the easiest thing, particularly in this kind of economy.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the things that required a lot of education. When I started my first company, we bootstrapped that, so that was a very painful process, but it taught me a lot of things. And when I went to go raise money, I had never done it before. So I went through a lot of the programs that both TAG and ATDC offer, and had all my pitches lined up, my 30-second pitch and 60-second pitch. And the problem that we were facing is we were at the idea stage, and it's really difficult to raise money at the idea stage.
Right.
But I've been beating on my business model for quite some time, and I was lucky to have some really smart friends that acted as sounding boards. But I wasn't able to raise any money, and I was mooching off of some friends that have a place down in Puerto Vallarta, and sitting by the pool having a margarita, talking to one of my friends from Dallas, and I said, I'm having a really tough time. I think I've got this great idea, but I just can't figure out how to raise money. And he asked me what the idea was, so we talked about it, and he's like, yeah, I'd put some money in that. And I came back home, and I talked to another friend of mine who I've known since ninth grade, who was at the time at the Carlisle Group. And he's like, well, okay, tell me what the revenue model is. Where is that right now? Because I've been talking to him for about a year about it. And So we kind of brought him up to speed, and he's like, yeah, I put some money in that too.
Very good.
So what I learned, especially when you're trying to raise money at that early stage, is it is all about the people that know you, that you have known you for years, that know your character, know what you're capable of, and they're definitely the people that are willing to take that. The risk is a little bit lower for them because they at least have that background.
Right.
So I highly recommend find some people that you know that have some money and respect you.
Right. And definitely that family and friend stage is huge. So it's great that you and the over margarita probably doesn't hurt either, as for our listeners out there. So
absolutely.
So you have a very good idea, obviously, and you're making it into a business. If you had to compare, and probably this isn't fair because you have to do both, but is it about the great idea, or is it about to be good in business to be able to deliver?
Well, that's actually something that was another shock to me based on my background was, ideally you have both, but if you can only choose one, I think it's much better to be really good in business. You can make a lot of money selling hot dogs on the streets of New York.
Right.
And it actually surprised, I went back to my undergrad school and I was talking to some students there, and this is when I had my consulting company, and I told them that my old boss at the manufacturing company was one of my advisors. And it completely blew their mind because they're like, well, he's an older person, he's in manufacturing, he can't understand what you're doing. So how could he possibly be of any help to you? And it just shocked me because my mind had shifted, and I was like, he really understands business. He's an expert at business, and that's so valuable. Even though he's not an expert in our domain, he really understands the fundamentals. And so I guess if you had to choose one, I'd go with business.
The business. We have time for one more question. Let's go back and just talk about what are your requirements, what's the checklist for a successful business?
Well, I've actually had the opportunity to talk to a number of entrepreneurs who are just getting started, and I have this list of criteria that before you can get into whatever it is their business is, the first thing is, can they build it? Do they have the technical expertise to do whatever it is? If they're building a web solution, are they developers? Is someone on their team a developer? If they're building a medical device, are they engineers on board? And that sounds silly, but I've come across a number of people that don't have that core skill set. The next thing is industry knowledge. Do you understand who your customers are, what their pains are, what the value proposition is for whatever you're working on? And the third, I think, is just raw business experience. Have you ever run a company or been senior in a company where you know how to hire and fire people, you know how to handle accounting and cash flow forecasts? And, I've some anecdotal stories. I've got a friend who's a really smart guy, a Harvard guy. And he's working on a web solution, but he's not a developer. So I've had to have some training sessions with him to explain, here's what you need to know about development. So, he doesn't really know how to hire someone because he's not technical. And there's another case where I came across some MBA students who were working on something. They didn't know how to build it. They didn't have any experience in the industry, and they'd never run a business. Like, that's going to be tough. So I think before you even get to the business idea, those are some of the things that I look for. And if any of those are holes, then I definitely recommend patching them before you go any further.
So the Business Launch Competition finals May 24th at IBM, and it's open to the public. Hopefully listeners will come out and support the four finalists, and actually you'll learn a lot. The judges' questions are always interesting, and the responses are interesting. So, Marcel, thanks for joining me on Tech Talk today, and best of luck at the finals.
Yeah, thank you. It was great being here.